Hello and welcome back to the coverage of RPTQ here in Szczecin, live from Szczecin, Poland. We are done with round number 4. The players have just received their pairings for round number 5 of Swiss. So only 2 rounds of Swiss left, and then we will have our cut to top 8, where the players will
battle for the invitation to the Mythic Championship in London.
Exactly. So we do not know yet who's going to play for us this round, but we will find that out shortly. So far we've seen a huge representation of Sultai decks, some Drakes, some Control, a little fewer aggro decks, so mono red, mono blue, and some outliers in the meta.
And pretty big lag of Nexus of Fate decks in the room. Only a few of those. Literally only 3 players brought this archetype to the battle. So
we could see one of them. What does it mean? We could see one of those decks in the previous round. Unfortunately, the player lost, or fortunately for the opponent. Depends on how you look at it. Alright. The feature match area is still empty.
Players are coming there.
So let us remind you that our tournament is brought by... Oh, that's Lori. The tournament is brought to you with the help of MTG Spot, Ultimate Guard, Cardmarket.eu, Runtime GG, Exor Studios, Świat Kawy i Herbaty, and Psychotog.pl. So, the player on the right, Michał Lorenz, he might be familiar to some of you, also from coverage of multiple European GPs, where he's played a couple of times to pretty good results.
The renowned Warsaw magic grinder, I guess.
Renowned magician. And his suite of magic tricks today involves small creatures being cast using plains basic land.
And hallowed fountains. His version is splashing blue for negates and other counter spells sideboard, in addition to some Deputy of Detonation main deck.
Of course. So looking to play a lot of monsters and just destroy the opponent.
On the other side of the table, Simon Simon is shuffling his own deck, which we don't know what's the archetype yet, but
so Michał Lorenz, not Lorek. Thank you for that misspelling. Is 3-1 actually at the moment. So I guess both players are on 9 match points, if no pairings up and down or down happened. So they are still alive for.
They're trying to win those last 2 rounds to get into the top 8 of the tournament for sure, and then battle in that final top 8 match to try to qualify.
Michał rolled a 4. Simon managed to not top that. I guess Michał will be pretty happy about that, given the aggressive nature of his deck.
Yeah, Mono West is definitely a deck that takes advantage from being on the play. So winning the dice roll is always important and always helpful.
Have you tested any of the white decks, like white weenie decks, or is it not your style?
Yeah, I mean, I have not really done that personally, but like some of my teammates are looking into those decks. Like generally, you just want to have a broader picture of the metagame when you are preparing for a tournament, like the upcoming Mythic Championship in Cleveland, that where I'm going to play. Well, like in short, not the hugest fan of the strategy at the moment, but it has some merits.
and the deck he's going to play against is a Drake deck. I saw a maximized velocity, so capable of some explosive one-turn kills.
Maximize Velocity is an interesting card. I do like inclusion of cards like this quite a bit in the Drake's deck. Like kinda uh, agreeing upon the fact that you need some help to actually kill your opponents, and well, Maximize Velocity is just a way to put a lot of extra pressure on your opponent, and you know, even the mere fact of it sitting in play, sitting in your graveyard is going to exert a lot of influence over your opponent's plays, making them more conscientious about keeping up removal spells and ways not to die to a hasty Drake with 10 plus power. If you assemble enough instant or sorcery spells in your graveyard to fuel its power highly enough. You know, the fact that it has jumpstart allows you to discard it early to chart a course or like drop it into your graveyard with discovery.
Michał mulliganing to 6 on the play.
Yeah.
Keeps this hand.
Typically, last standard format, the mono white decks were fairly advantage against the Drake's decks, and had no real trouble winning this match. But there is one single big omission from Michał's deck list. Namely, he is not playing any Adanto Vanguards, which was always the most threatening card for Simon's deck to deal with, so we will see if just piling up aggressive monsters is enough to shut the door down on the Drake's deck quickly enough then.
Already at 6 permanents, that's an important... Oh, at 5. That's an important thing for this Snubhorn Sentry with Ascend mechanic. At 0-3 that will become a 3-3. But yeah, this deck, I feel like it can take advantage of the fact that the Drakes spend their first couple of turns setting up.
Casting cantrips and then just relying on a single threat. If that threat gets removed, it's going to be pretty bad for a Drake's player, because, well, they are going to take a lot of damage during those turns. So yeah, Simon spends his turn casting some removal spells in, well, pretty inefficient ways. Shock for a vampire, token from the Legion's Landing, and a Lava Coil for just a Snubhorn Sentry, which had 0 power and probably would have 0 power for quite some time. But he needed to spend his mana somehow, and now he's facing a History of Benalia, so the third land into History of Benalia was a really great follow-up for Michał, because, well, History kinda shrugs off shocks. Well, maybe shrugs off is a lot to say, but you know, it is a 2-for-1. Like every time you shock a knight, you are going down on card economy.
Yes, you are effectively dealing with half of a card. So there was a third land for Simon. He's deciding what to do next.
I think a sorcery speed shock maybe on this knight. Seemingly pretty unsure about whether this play is correct, but decides to kill the token off.
Another token.
Yeah, Michał is going to immediately put it back on the battlefield because he gets an extra one from History again. He's going to attack, and what is his follow-up? An extra History maybe? Or...
That would be good.
That would be great. Just a Hallowed Fountain and no place that is less scary. Is his last card then a Conclave Tribunal maybe? Get ready to deal with a Drake once it gets dropped on the battlefield, because as of now the battlefield is not the most threatening that there ever was, but it can change. Simon has 2 more islands in his hand, in addition to a lava coil and a cantrip spell.
Which I think he just picked up through Discovery, the lava coil.
Yeah, so not great targets for lava coil. So like, Equina would like to wait for something like a at least a venerated Loxodon or the Benalish Marshal to coil, but at the same time it's going to take 5 damage from this goes down to 12, and like
Snowborn Head Sentry joining.
Michał is getting somewhere, and is Simon also needs to be cognizant about Legion's landing, because once it flips, there is going to be a steady stream of 1/1 vampire tokens, and while it's not the most threatening thing of the world for the Drake's deck, because a simple blocker can try to help you fight against that, it is good. It is like kinda hard to contain, because it's very hard for the Drake's deck to have multiple blockers. They also gain life, and it seems like Simon is kind of flooding with his cantrips.
Drawn a lot of islands.
It's one of the dangers of having so many cantrips, that some of them will just end with dead ends by drawing lands, but the Crackling Drake is a decent card to draw. 8 cantrips, it's a huge threat. It already will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 power, I believe. He doesn't want to cast it into Conclave Tribunal, probably having a read on Michał for his last card to be Conclave Tribunal, and just as Simon spends his Lava Coil on a Snaphorn Sentry to prevent Legion's Landing from ever flipping, Michał top decks a powerful Benalish Marshal to pump both of his creatures, and now Simon is in a lot of trouble, in a world of trouble.
Does he have any protection for this Drake?
I think I have seen a dive down.
Alright then.
Yeah, there's a dive down, discovery dispersal, and they land.
So at least he's not dead yet, but the
Then
Benalish Marshal has brought a lot to the table.
Well, the Drake is pretty good at blocking so far, I guess. Michał would need a second Benalish Marshal to actually have great attacks. And even then, you can use dive down as a combat trick to consume the first Marshal and then kinda end up in a similar place, albeit you take 7 damage, so you lose the game in the process. So. Conclave Tribunal, playing around Spell Pierce, cognizant of the fact that Spell Pierce is a card, and actually giving up the potential of lethal damage and flipping the Legion's Landing by doing it like that. So Michał showing a lot of respect to Spell Pierce being a card, and in fact it is a very possible card for Simon to have. Michał didn't play many possible targets for the Spell Pierce yet, but unfortunately for him, the protection card that Simon is holding is a dive down. It is not a Spell Pierce, so the Drake stays alive.
And there is more where that came from, as I have seen that Simon has drawn another copy.
That is true. I would need to check the exact amount of instant and sorceries in the graveyard, because it is possible that Simon has a pretty easy to assemble lethal over 2 turns. If he, you just play the first one, see what you get. You get a Pteromancer. There's 10 instant and sorceries in his graveyard, so, well, it is pretty easy. Chooses to cast Discovery Dispersal. Probably looking for a dive down. If he fails to find a dive down, he'll just play the Pteromancer, I guess. Since those Drakes already have 10 power, you just need to hit your opponent twice with either one of those, so you technically don't need the dive down, so it actually doesn't really matter if you cast the Discovery Dispersal. I believe it's pretty hard for Michał to find an out, although one out that Simon might have been thinking about was Deputy of Detention, which would be able to counter to exile both of the Drakes. Which is why you would go the extra mile to try to dig towards the dive down. So I do like Simon's play, like recognizing the ways he can lose this game and trying not to let that happen.
A second Benelish Marshal going to join the battlefield, bumping the other white creatures.
And the Pteramander is going to be
enough.
Able to champ block, and then Michał is going to die to a Crackling Drake hit.
Michał knows this attack is just like, it's not going to do it. Did not even flip the Legion's landing. You know, it's just going nowhere.
You can see how defeated of a pose Michał has assumed.
Yeah.
His arm slumped, his whole body language saying how you cannot win anymore.
This sucks.
So when you do something like this, when you like do the last ditch attack, you need to be very confident. You need to like straighten up your shoulders and you're like attack you, do stuff. That's the way you can do this.
I didn't expect you to be capable of, moving this fast, being so high energy.
Is that an insult?
So many hours of,
or a backhanded compliment?
a bit of both. A bit of both.
I see.
After so many hours of coverage, yeah, we've been here all day today. Yesterday we had like 8 or 9 hours of broadcast that's available on our Twitch page, on our YouTube channel as well. So if you missed that, there were some good moments. Some good plays like 5-for-1 cleansing Nova.
And that sometimes happens that you
so
kind of figure out that you have made a mistake too late.
Everybody's done that.
Unfortunate, and I've been there, you've been there. I assume most of our viewers also have been there, unless they are not playing Magic the Gathering at all. But I assume that most of the people who are watching this broadcast are familiar with the game and have played themselves at least a little bit.
Alright, so the players are sideboarding, getting ready for game number 2. Who do you think improves after the board?
A lot of the Drake's decks still have some fiery cannonades against the go white strategies in their sideboards, and fiery cannonade is pretty strong against the mono white deck. I did not love it the last standard format because the cannonade was kinda weak against both Adanta Vanguard and Benalish Marshal, but nowadays Michał is not playing Adanta Vanguard anymore. So if Simon brought his cannonades from home, then I believe he's going to be the one who improves. The mono white deck does not have a very good side, but it is mostly game 1 aggressive deck for the most part, so the options are kind of lackluster. Michał probably has some more, a few counter spells, but the counter spells are not too great against Drakes actually. So like there's a high density of spells, but not many spells that are actually worthwhile to counter, and it's not easy to cast the counter spells with given Michał's mana base consisting of only 8 only basic planes and 8 blue-white dual lands. So Michał might just want to present the same deck again, actually. It's like not impossible. There's also another thing. Fiery Cannonade is good, but it's actually kind of bad against Venerated Loxodon, which is a card present in Michał's deck list in 4 copies. So we will see how this tension resolves, because I have no idea. It is kind of draw dependent.
Alright, we will have to find this out. So, as the players are shuffling, I'll just remind you that this edition of Paprykarz Open is made possible by magiccardmarket.eu, mtgspot.pl, Ultimate Guard, runtime.gg, Exor Studios, Świat Kawy i Herbaty, and psychotalk.pl. So thank you all for being with us.
Would you also say that it's made possible by Magic the Gathering existing in the first place? Because otherwise you would not be able to host a tournament of this game?
It is, of course.
Okay.
It's implicit.
I can see that being a reasonable way to think about those matters. Michał needs to take a mulligan on the play again. Bailey he mulligan game 1 too. You know, this mono white deck is one of the decks that mulligan the most in the format, so it's kind of expected to happen more often than not. Well, maybe not more often than not, but more often than it happens with other decks. So Simon, on the other hand, keeps his hand because the Drake deck is, well, kind of the polar opposite on the spectrum. It is full of cantrips and like it is also land light, but a lot of the hands are very, very similar to each other. You know, 1-2 creatures, 1-2 lands, and like 2 cantrips and a removal spell. Like that's like almost always are going to get a hand composed like this because the cards are just so similar and so many cards are replaceable in the Simon's deck. And you know, just dig towards the end goal.
Michał happy with his 6, keeping it. I see Legion's Landing, a Snowborn Sentry. So he is ready to pump those creatures out.
Did he scry a card on top?
Yes.
That's good.
Alright, I'm printing parents.
That would be good to have 3 wonders to flip this Legion landings ASAP. Unfortunately, Simon has a shock to break that synergy apart. You can see that Michał actually has brought some sideboard cards into his deck. He is ready with a baffling end for the smaller creatures that Simon produces. Simon's deck typically runs 12 creatures, 8 drakes, so like 4 Enigma drakes and 4 Kraken drakes and 4 Pteramanders. You can hit all but the Crackling drakes with the Baffling End card.
Stubborn Sentry, even though it's not ascended yet, getting in for 1 point of damage thanks to the Benelish Marshal providing a buff.
Nice.
You gotta get those points wherever you can.
Simon brought in Entrancing Melody, which is a cheap mana control effect, and mana control effects are typically pretty strong. Snapper Sentry changing owners, I guess controllers. The owner is still the same. So a nice 2-for-1. Michał lost a creature, Simon gained a creature. A 0-3 right now, but it's going to be useful at blocking the smaller ones throughout the game, and it's, you know, actually kind of a backbreaking play. It might be looking slightly tough for Michał right now. This mono white deck is relying on having a good start very frequently, and this start is all but good. Now Michał is just passing with some reactive cards in his hand, and this is all that Simon actually wants for Michał to assemble a defensive position.
Dauntless Bodyguard targeting the Marshal and a Conclave Tribunal to take care of the first Crackling Drake. There is probably more where that came from, and we see a powerful creature, powerful monster in Simon's hand. Niv-Mizzet.
Niv-Mizzet Parun?
Yes, it is the Parun.
Yeah, some people do like to bring the Parun against the mono white deck, just to like go bigger and go control on them, catch some of the smaller creatures. The Pteramanders are like not excellent at blocking, and they do take a while to adapt, and Parun is... Nifmezet Parun is a way to just go over the top instantly.
And
If you do
machine
not-
gun
yeah.
down the whole board.
If you don't die once you tap for it,
Mhm.
tap out for it. One card I liked at previous points to combine with such a strategy was Blink of an Eye, because then you can Blink of an Eye, bounce, say, a Conclave Tribunal that's holding your powerful Nifmezet under, but not many players have been employing that strategy. It also didn't ever really prove to be all that good, but I always thought it was neat.
Enigma Drake added to the battlefield. We know that Michał has the baffling end to take care of that creature.
So at least that's a target for that. It's actually just gets excited. It's not really connected to the buffing end, but that's a pretty easy
Shortcut.
shortcut, like, because most of the things work like that.
So a bunch of cantrips, the Parun and Enigma Drake in hand for Simon.
Yeah, he didn't get his 6th land on time. I would be tempted to just play the Parun the next turn, or this turn if I did have my land, but maybe not necessarily. Keeps both cards on top, draws a lava coil, so now he can kill both of the creatures that Michał is controlling, which is hugely good, and allows for Nifmezet Parun to take over the game. Because, well, you're definitely going to take over the game if you play it early. Notably, Simon couldn't really kill the Benalish Marshal with Lava Coil this turn because Michał sacrificed the Dauntless Bodyguard to give Benalish Marshal indestructible. So, you know, a heads-up play by Michał, respecting the fact that there might be Lava Coils coming, and, you know, make your opponents wait a turn. Pretty nice.
Knight of Benalia. And joining the battlefield, the second one on its way. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty grim for Michał right now. However, this Venerated Loxodon. That's a bigger creature. It can go toe-to-toe with the Drakes.
It's basically 6/6. Unfortunately, Nifmezet Parun is slowly approaching, and there is also a Lava Coil to deal with that. I mean, honestly, it's not actually half bad for Michał. Simon needs to spend his Lava Coil on the Venerated Loxodon, basically.
Yes, and the Knights are going to get pumped next turn.
He needs to block at least one of the Knights. Might consider attacking, given that Michał is just still sitting on that one single card in hand. It might as well be a land, but you don't know, you cannot know for sure. Could be also an enchantment removal of some sort. So Simon might need to champ the next turn. It's actually a reasonable line to just champ with the Snaphorn Sentry, but keep the Drake back to be able to block, just in case.
Drake hitting Michał for 9 damage. Alright, let's see what's on the top.
The third chapter of History of Benalia triggers, pumping the Knights to 5 force.
Actually, they are 5 force, yeah. Sorry.
Simon is asking a question to the judge, looking for Oracle decks of cards.
Pride of Conquerors and Unbreakable Formation, I guess.
Yeah, this is a pretty common thing to do if you need some clarification on what cards that exist but you don't remember right now. Actually, you can always call a judge and ask the judge for the oracle text on that card and see what those actually do. So in this case, Simon is aware of the fact that there are two somewhat commonly played tricks. There are two tricks that are somewhat commonly played in the mono-white deck. So he just wants to make sure that he knows what those two do before he decides about what are his blocks.
It's one with the addendum or whatever in it. It's a rare.
Something formation. Assault formation?
Unbreakable formation.
It's an instant, one color, one green and two colorless.
One green and two colors.
Unbreakable.
One white. One not.
Have I? Unbreakable formation. He doesn't have his earpiece in.
In the meanwhile, Michał is perfecting his art of
Have I? Do you hear us?
poker facing.
Unbreakable formation.
Unbreakable formation. Unbreakable formation.
Yeah, some confusion about the exact name of the card. But again, if you ever call a judge in a situation like this, you are of course allowed to just describe what the card does. You are not required to remember the exact text of the
Exactly.
card.
You can just say, "Oh, that's the blue card that draws you a card," and then blah blah blah.
Does something, and you
if
want to
you-
know
if
what is
you-
exactly the text
yes.
of the something.
That's useful, for example, when you want to name a card with like a pithing needle or sorcerer's spyglass, and you don't know exactly the name. Well, with sorcerer's spyglass, you can kind of just take a look.
I mean, you definitely want to avoid naming
Borborygmos.
the proverbial Borborygmos with a pithing needle. Okay, Simon got what he wanted to know and is now deciding his blocks. So you should see that he's not dead to either Pride nor Unbreakable Formation, so my bet would be that in the end he's not going to be interested in blocking any of those monsters, but I mean,
At least not with the Drake.
yeah, not with the Drake. So he would just probably champ with the Snaphorn Sentry, survive at 2 life, and then have lethal in the air with
Double Drake Carino.
double Enigma Drake. But considering his options and like thinking through the possible plays that he could make, counting the amount of instant air sorceries in his graveyard to be sure what is the power of his Drake, and decides to go with what he sees as a
Safer play.
probably safer play and trades for the Knight token.
A replacement history of Benalia to the battlefield.
It's a good draw. It's a good one.
It is a good draw. And Michał might be back in this one.
Oh yeah. Simon's draws are not too kind to him. He cannot find a 6 land, and this turn is going to be empty for him. So that makes it so that he could technically attack, but then he opens himself dead to a Benalish Marshal draw or any other way to pump the power of the creatures. And remember, Michał still has this one threatening card in his hand, which can put some fear in Simon. On the other hand, waiting does not actually benefit Simon too much, because if he doesn't attack, that means that the history of Benalia will strike its third chapter. On the other hand, if Simon were to draw a way to put 2 instant and slash sorceries in his graveyard, then he has just clear lethal with just this one Enigma Drake. So it already has 10 power, but needs 2 more points of power to be able to defeat Michał in one swing. For now though, Simon has 2 monsters in his hand.
Michał just passes the turn.
Draws his 6th land. Can finally drop that Niv Mizzet Parun. It's not actually great right now. It's would probably just be relegated to a blocking duty. But yeah, Michał needs to block something the next turn. The next turn is when the big chapter 3 of History of Benalia hits, and well, that Lava Coil is a
big help.
very fortunate
Mm-hmm.
card to pick up. Can coil the free token, and either, you know, it's still not ideal because if Michał draws something that's good, if he draws like an unbreakable formation, like if he actually draws the unbreakable formation, I don't believe he has it right now, then he would force a double chump block. Well, no, that's not a double chump block. Actually, he can let one knight through. So I guess it's actually really problematic for Michał. I don't know if he has anything that's too great to draw. A removal spell alone is helpful, because you'll be able to remove one drag attack with both knights that are getting pounded by History of Benalia, and then trade for the other one. Then he has one knight, Simon has 3 life. It's an empty board, and he just draws a card and plays a Niv Mizzet Parun. Niv Mizzet Parun, of course, a card that needs to be dealt with immediately, and the knight alone would not be lethal, so it would require another good draw from Michał, but he actually had the unbreakable formation. He's able to kill off a Drake, and this Crackling Drake is only 11 power so far, so not lethal yet, although any spell is going to kill Michał Lawrence,
So yeah,
including this one. That's going to make the Drake 12 power now, and Simon goes for an overkill anyways, and it's going to attack for 13 points. And that finishes the match between Simon and Michał Lawrence. Simon advances to 4-1, so
he's on his way to the top 8 of this tournament.
is he going to be able to ID his way into the top 8, or is he possibly going to
Michał
need to play?
Michał still is able to pick up lots of nice prizes, because there are, of course, playmats, there was lots of boosters from Wizards. The prizes are really great, so top 16 is still in his range, I bet. But yeah, we will have a short interview with Simon and what he thought about the matchup, and his choices in the sideboard, his choices in the deck, and why he decided to use the blue-red Drakes to be his weapon of choice for today's RPTQ. So see you in a couple of minutes.
Exactly.